welcome back to the Deep Dive. You know, the show where we take a topic you're curious about, really dig into the sources, and try to pull out the core insights for you. And today, well, we've got a really fascinating one. We're looking at Jamaica.
Yeah, Jamaica. It's a place everyone sort of feels they know, right? You think beaches, music, maybe Bolt, that whole tropical brand image.
That whole vibe, exactly. The hospitality, the good energy people talk about, that feeling of a cultural mecca almost. But our mission, your mission if you're listening, is to understand what's really going on there. What's underneath that? What makes this relatively small island pack such a huge punch on the world stage? Music, sports, even ideas.
It's a great question. And the answer, according to the sources we dug into, particularly Burke's work, Jamaica, the psychology of a defiant genius is, well, it's not quite what you might expect.
Okay, intrigue us. Not just hospitality then.
Not just hospitality. Burke puts forward this really powerful central idea. He argues Jamaica's dynamism, its cultural energy. It comes from something called unbroken agency. It's a story about human will, fundamentally. And it expresses itself through this constant tension, this duality.
Duality between what?
Between defiance, a really deep-seated resistance, and on the other hand, an equally powerful drive for excellence. For mastery.
Defiance and excellence. Okay, that feels like a core tension right there.
It is. And Burke frames Jamaica almost like a laboratory of human will.
Right.
It's this historical and ongoing experiment showing what happens when you strip away institutional power, when people face immense pressure.
The human spirit doesn't just break.
Exactly. It reinvents. It finds new channels. It pours that energy into creativity, into intellect, into faith, and yes, into that defiance we mentioned.
So when people look from the outside and maybe see, I don't know, economic challenges or what looks like chaos,
they're potentially missing the internal view. The sources suggest that from the inside, it's not chaos, it's negotiation. It's potential waiting to be shaped. It's finding rhythm within the disorder.
turning disorder into movement, as the source puts it, asserting your own reality.
Precisely. So we're talking about a psychological pattern, a cultural DNA that's been forged over centuries of resisting domination and insisting on identity.
Right. So we need to look past the postcard images.
Yeah, we need to get under the hood and see the engine.
Okay, let's do it. Where do we start? With the defiance part.
I think we have to start there. It's foundational. The sources identified this core archetype, this central identity figure. They call it the self-liberated mind.
The self-liberated mind. What does that mean in practice?
It means the person who, at their absolute core, refuses to accept limits imposed from the outside. It's someone who says, you might control my circumstances, my physical world.
But you can't control my will.
Exactly that. My mind, my spirit, that's mine. And this isn't just a nice idea. It was forged in the absolute fire of slavery and colonial oppression. It's a hard-won spiritual boundary.
And you're saying this one idea, this archetype, it shows up everywhere.
Everywhere. Think about Jamaican patois, the way it sounds. It's assertiveness. Think about the drive for education we'll get into. The humor, often sharp, challenging authority.
Sports dominance, obviously.
Obviously.
Yeah.
And even, the friction, the anti-establishment streak. It's all fueled by the same engine, this refusal to be contained. It drives the creativity and the resistance.
Okay, but is it just being difficult?
Yeah.
Or is there more to it? The sources say it's not arrogance.
Right. That's crucial. It's framed as a strategy for existence developed over generations. It's a survival mechanism honed through history, not just rebellion for rebellion's sake.
And historically, where does that really take root? You mentioned the Maroons earlier. Are they sort of the prime example?
They're absolutely central. Their story is incredible. They escaped slavery, went into the mountains, and waged successful guerrilla warfare against the British Empire. Successful.
They didn't just hide, they fought and won concessions.
They forced the British to sign treaties granting them autonomy within the island. That set a powerful precedent, a national template. You survive by standing firm. You don't just yield to control systems, whether they're colonial, economic, whatever.
So that physical resistance, centuries ago, created a kind of psychological inheritance, a deep distrust of authority baked into the national personality.
That seems to be the argument. It manifests in small ways, too. Burke points to that common phrase, don't tell me what to do. He says it's not just being rude or difficult. It's like an ancestral memory clicking in, a flash of that historical resistance against being ordered around, being dehumanized.
Wow. So independence of thought isn't just valued, it's almost sacred. Maybe even more important than playing nice sometimes.
It often seems that way. Self-assertion feels like a birthright. It's in the cultural water supply, if you like.
But crucially, this energy, this defiance, it's not just negative or friction causing, it's incredibly creative.
Hugely creative. That's where you get world-changing innovations. Think about reggae music, dance hall. These aren't just styles. The sources define them as defiant acts of redefinition.
How so? Redefining what?
Redefining reality on their own terms. Take patois, the Jamaican national language. Colonial powers called it broken English, tried to suppress it.
Right, saw it as inferior.
But Jamaicans elevated it, used it in poetry, literature, and crucially, as the language of global music. That's a massive statement. It says, our way of speaking, our reality is valid. We don't need your approval. It's linguistic self-sovereignty.
And that famous Jamaican swagger, that presence, does that connect to?
It absolutely connects. It's like a non-verbal version of the same thing. Whether it's an artist on stage, someone telling a joke, or just how people carry themselves, there's often an undercurrent of, I am here, acknowledge me, I exist on my own terms. It commands respect through self-assertion. Okay, but the sources don't paint a completely rosy picture. They talk about a shadow side to this defiance.
Yes, and that's critical for understanding the complexity. It's that duality again, the same raw energy that fuels incredible creativity and resilience. Well, it's volatile. It hasn't been tamed.
So if it doesn't have a positive outlet,
It can spill over. It can become rebellion without a clear goal, just resistance for its own sake. Sometimes resisting systems or authority, even when maybe collaboration would be smarter. It can create excellence, but also disruption.
the unchanneled power of that self-liberated mind.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which leads us right into that central paradox we need to tackle next.
Which is,
How does a culture so rooted in not submitting, so prone to internal friction because of that fierce independence, manage to produce such consistent, organized, world-beating excellence?
right, that's the flip side. How do they channel it?
That takes us to the second part of the duality, mastery. Yeah, this paradox is fascinating. A small island, post-colonial history, economic challenges, yet consistently punching way above its weight. Olympic champions, world-class scholars, music pioneers. How? The sources say it's not just luck or raw talent.
No, it's presented as a deeply embedded cultural system. And the primary vehicle for that system, the main channel, is education.
Education is the key.
Absolutely. The phrase that captures the ethos is the mind as passport. And the command, repeated generation after generation, is get your education. It's described as almost a national creed.
Why so intense? I mean, education is important everywhere, but a national creed, what makes it different there?
Because for people emerging from slavery and colonialism, knowledge wasn't just about getting a better job. It was seen as the only truly sustainable escape from limitation. Your land can be taken, your body controlled, but your mind, your knowledge, that's portable. It can't be owned or contained by borders. Education became a tool for liberation, a moral imperative almost. It wasn't just about escaping poverty. It was about escaping ignorance, dependency. It was about transforming your own fate.
That must lead to incredible dedication, incredible sacrifice within families.
Unbelievable sacrifice. Stories abound of mothers working multiple jobs, selling goods in the market, whole communities pooling resources just to send one child to school, to university, because the belief in the power of the intellect to change destiny is that strong.
And the success of the diaspora kind of proves them right, doesn't it? Jamaicans overseas often excel in professions requiring high education.
Exactly. Law, medicine, academia, finance. It validates that core belief. Mind power transcends geography.
Okay, and this connects to another interesting concept from the sources. The colonial paradox alchemized. It sounds complex.
It's a bit of psychological judo, really. Under the British, the education system was partly designed to control, right? To create compliant clerks and subjects who accepted the hierarchy.
Assimilation, basically.
Yes, but Jamaicans took that system and used it strategically. They didn't just learn within it. They aimed to master the master's system specifically in order to surpass it.
Ah, so it's a defiant move using the tools of the oppressor.
Precisely. Mastering the Queen's English, excelling in British law, understanding economics, even theology. These weren't acts of submission. They were ways of learning the rules of the game so well you could eventually change the game, or at least beat the system from the inside. It's turning a tool of control into a weapon of liberation, cognitive mastery.
Okay, that defiance and mastery connection is becoming clearer. And the sources boil this down to a core operational framework, right? The structural triad of power.
Yeah, this triad helps explain how these intense traits interact dynamically. It consists of defiance, mastery, and expression. Thinking about each helps us see the whole picture.
All right, let's break them down. Defiance first, we've covered the drive. Autonomy, non-submission. How does it manifest constructively and less constructively?
Okay, defiance, constructively. You see it in political activism, challenging injustice. You see it in creating globally resonant protest art like reggae, even critical humor. It's necessary friction for change.
And the shadow side, the overflow.
That's when it becomes just a general rejection of order, a deep suspicion of any authority, even legitimate kinds, maybe impulsive disobedience that causes unnecessary conflict or gridlock.
Got it. Okay, next in the triad, mastery. What's the core drive there?
The drive is seeing knowledge as power, as a weapon essential for survival and getting ahead.
And the constructive results.
World-class academic achievement, intellectual confidence, that belief they have a right to contribute to global thought, incredible linguistic skill, moving fluidly between patois and formal English, strategic thinking.
And the shadow of mastery.
It can tip into elitism, looking down on those without formal education. Fierce, sometimes counterproductive, competitiveness within the society. Or using that sharp intellect for manipulation, for scheming, as it might be called locally.
Right. And the third part of the triad, expression. This feels like the Jamaica the world often sees first.
Yes, the vibrancy. The core drive here is emotional authenticity, the need to be fully seen, heard, felt.
Constructively, that gives us.
Amazing art, music, dance performance, incredible oratory. The island produces phenomenal speakers, that magnetic charisma everyone talks about.
And the shadow side of expression.
It can become over-the-top drama, ego inflation, sometimes maybe style over substance, performance just for performance's sake, or conflict played out very theatrically. That lively up energy becoming exhausting, perhaps.
So this triad, defiance, mastery, expression, it's like a dynamic system. It explains how the national character generates power, channels it, and projects it.
Exactly. It's not just random talent. It's the specific, intense engine. When those three elements align constructively, you get world-changing impact. A Bob Marley, a Stuart Hall, a Shelley Ann Fraser Price.
But if they're misaligned or maybe blocked by lack of opportunity,
then you get the volatility, the friction, maybe even self-sabotage. That's also part of the complex reality.
Okay, so this internal engine, this triad, it creates a noticeable pattern of behavior, right? The sources call it high agency in all realms. What do they mean by high agency?
High agency is basically the profound, deeply ingrained belief that you can change things, that your personal will, your effort can actually alter reality, even when the odds are stacked against you. It's refusing to accept limitations passively. It's an active, energetic engagement with the world.
And you can actually see this. The sources give examples.
Oh yeah, very concrete examples. Think about speech. It's often assertive, rhythmic, commanding attention. Conversations can feel like performances or debates, a way of claiming space verbally. High energy.
Yeah, and movement.
The obvious one is athletics. That sprint dominance isn't just physical talent. It's channeling that will, that agency, into absolute discipline and a demand for supremacy. Explosive energy, perfectly controlled.
What about in commerce? Especially given economic limitations sometimes.
That's where you see what the sources call survival entrepreneurship. It's this incredible adaptability, the hustle, from the person selling goods on the street corner with a clever angle to major international business figures from the diaspora. In a system with limited formal jobs, creating your own opportunity becomes the ultimate act of high agency. You don't wait, you innovate. You find a way.
Even faith reflects this. You might think faith involves submission,
But popular forms like Rastafari, revivalism, Pentecostalism, they tend to emphasize a direct connection to the divine. The power isn't located way up in some hierarchy, it's within you. The individual is the conduit for spiritual power.
So even your relationship with God reinforces your own agency and internal authority.
Completely. It aligns perfectly with that self-liberated mind concept. Your spiritual power comes from within, validating your will.
So high agency is this driving force. But what happens if it gets blocked? If there's no positive outlet for all that willpower?
That's when it tends to mutate, according to the analysis. If the formal system, jobs, education, politics, doesn't provide pathways, that agency doesn't just vanish.
It goes somewhere else.
It flows into other channels, maybe cunning, street smarts, finding ways around the system, sometimes into outright rebellion or activities outside the law. It becomes what Burke calls counter-system hustling. Still agency, still willpower, but operating against the grain, sometimes destructively.
Which brings us to this really core, maybe challenging idea, the polarity of greatness. The framework says Jamaica often operates at the extremes, excellence in both directions, good and bad, so to speak.
Yeah, it's acknowledging that the same fundamental drive powers everything. There's this inherent will to dominate space, whether that's intellectually in academia, physically on the tracks, socially through charisma, or culturally through music. There's a pride in doing things to Dimax, pushing limits, making an undeniable impact.
And that single drive creates global icons in music and sports.
Exactly. But if the opportunities for that kind of constructive dominance aren't there, that same drive, that same intensity doesn't just switch off. It has to go somewhere.
So it gets channeled into
Right.
risk-taking, finding power in other ways.
Into intense hustle, maybe cunning, navigating difficult circumstances with sheer force of will. It's the energy finding an outlet, even if it's not the most celebrated one.
And this explains why Jamaica seems to embody contradiction so openly. The sources talk about its moral complexity.
Right. It's presented as a culture that doesn't really try to hide its contradictions or force people into a neat, polite box. There's an acceptance of being fully human, which means powerful, yes, but also flawed, audacious, and very self-aware about that internal duality.
This feels connected to that polarity of greatness idea. It's not just about good versus bad people, but about how every strength has a potential downside.
Precisely. The sources call it energetic overflow. Think of it like a volume knob turned way up. Every powerful virtue, if unchecked or under pressure, can flip into its shadow form.
Give some examples of that polarity.
Okay, take the immense national pride, that sense of self-worth and resilience, vital. But it can easily overflow into arrogance, a defensiveness that shuts down critique, or a stubbornness that prevents collaboration.
And the creativity, the thing that gives the world reggae and so much more.
That same amazing creative energy, if it's not channeled or disciplined by mastery, can manifest as chaos. Social unpredictability, maybe difficulty with long-term planning or organization, too much energy spinning without direction.
What about the hustle, that entrepreneurial spirit?
Phenomenal survival skill, making something from nothing. But the shadow side is exploitation. Hustling can become taking advantage of others within the community, especially when resources are scarce.
And finally, that core value we started with, independence, fierce self-reliance.
Its shadow is isolation. That same independence can curdle into deep mistrust and unwillingness to join forces, making collective action or building strong institutions really difficult sometimes. Everyone wants to be their own boss, literally and figuratively.
So the energy itself isn't good or bad, it's just powerful, immense. And the challenge is always how to channel it constructively.
That's the core cultural negotiation, according to this framework. Not to dampen the energy, but to aim it precisely.
And all of this, the defiance, the mastery, the expression, the polarities, rests on one even deeper foundation.
Yes. The ultimate bedrock seems to be an obsession with sovereignty. The sovereignty of the self.
Mimi.
Meaning the absolute non-negotiable refusal to be owned or defined by anyone or anything external. Not by colonial history, not by economic status, not by global opinion, not even necessarily by local social norms sometimes. It's the right to define oneself.
And Rastafari is maybe the purest expression of this. It's more than just music or dreadlocks.
Much more. The sources describe it as a political theology of autonomy. It's a whole worldview built on self-determination, rejecting the Babylon system, the oppressive external world, and affirming spiritual and psychological independence. I define reality, not the system.
Wow, a political theology of autonomy. That's strong.
And you see echoes of that everywhere. Every powerful artistic statement, every piece of music that resonates globally carries that implicit message.
Yeah.
I define my world. My expression shapes reality.
Even the national motto, out of many, one people, connects to this.
The sources suggest it's less a statement of fact, like we are all seamlessly blended, and more a statement of the ongoing process. Unity doesn't come from erasing the differences or taming the individual wills. It comes from finding ways for those fierce individual sovereignties to coexist, usually bound by a shared history of struggle and a shared assertion of dignity. It's unity forged from strong individuals, not conformity.
So the deepest insight, the core takeaway here, is this unwavering commitment to sovereignty of being, the right to define your own self, your own success, your own truth, without needing anyone else's permission slip.
That seems to be the absolute psychic core, and that is the energy source that fuels Jamaica's unlikely global influence.
Okay, so this deep internal engine, the sovereignty of being, is what allows Jamaica to project so much influence, right? It's soft power. It's not just exporting coffee or tourism.
No, it's exporting culture in a really fundamental way. Language, attitude, rhythm, ways of thinking. And crucially, as the sources emphasize, it's not just exporting individual talents, though there are many, it's exporting frameworks.
Frameworks, like templates.
Exactly. Templates, blueprints, ways of doing things, ways of seeing the world that other cultures then pick up, adapt, and run with. And the list of influential Jamaicans Burke provides is like Exhibit A for how this defiance mastery expression triad operates on a global scale.
All right, let's look at that list. Where should we start? Politics.
Makes sense. And you have to start with Marcus Garvey. Think about his impact. He wasn't just a Jamaican figure. He became the global icon for Black self-determination, Pan-Africanism, economic self-reliance. His ideas shaped movements across Africa, the Americas. His framework for Black pride and organization is still incredibly relevant.
A framework exported globally. And that continues with the diaspora.
Absolutely. Look at figures like Colin Powell, former U.S. Secretary of State, son of Jamaican immigrants, or Kamala Harris, the U.S. Vice President, whose father is Jamaican. This isn't accidental. It shows that drive for mastery, particularly through education, and that inherent high agency translating into positions of major global power. That confident, assertive presence fits leadership roles.
Okay, what about intellectual life? That education focus must produce thinkers who travel well.
Oh, absolutely. And they don't just join the conversation, they often change the conversation. Look at Stuart Hall, often called the godfather of multiculturalism. He essentially took his experience of navigating Jamaican and British identity and created the intellectual tools, the frameworks that academics worldwide now use to analyze culture, race, media, identity.
He basically built a new wing of the academy.
Pretty much. And you have others like Orlando Patterson at Harvard, whose work on freedom and slavery is monumental. Sylvia Wynter, whose philosophical work challenges the very basis of Western humanism. They mastered the academic system and then used that mastery to question its foundations. Defiance through intellect.
And we can't forget the cultural side of intellect. People like Miss Louise Bennett Coverley.
Absolutely essential. Her lifelong work validating Jamaican patois, writing poetry in it, performing it, arguing for its legitimacy, was a profound act of cultural sovereignty. She insisted the people's language was worthy of art and respect. That laid groundwork.
And contemporary writers like Marlon James winning the Booker Prize.
Yes, taking that complex, sometimes contradictory Jamaican reality and turning it into globally acclaimed literature. The mastery of craft is undeniable.
Okay, let's shift to the big one, music and innovation. This seems like the ultimate example of exporting frameworks.
It really is. It starts, of course, with Bob Marley. He didn't just make popular songs, he created a global template for protest music, for giving voice to the marginalized, all wrapped in those irresistible reggae rhythms.
But the sources argue the structural innovation was even deeper, coming from the studios.
Yes. This is where the real genius of framework building shines. People like Lee Scratch, Perry, the eccentric studio wizard, and King Tubby, the sound engineer, they weren't just recording music, they were inventing new ways to think about sound.
They invented dub music, right?
They invented dub, essentially creating the first remixes by taking existing tracks, stripping them down, adding effects, playing with the technology in ways it wasn't designed for. That idea that the studio itself is an instrument, that you can deconstruct and reconstruct sound, that's a massive conceptual leap.
The birth of remix culture.
Absolutely. Perry and Tubby provided the template. And that whole sound system culture with the MCs toasting or rapping over instrumental tracks.
That gets exported too, directly to New York City.
By DJ Kool Herc, a Jamaican immigrant in the Bronx. He brought the sound system techniques, isolating the breakbeats, the MC talking over the rhythms to block parties, and boom, that's the acknowledged birth of hip-hop.
So a Jamaican framework becomes the foundation for arguably the biggest global music genre of the last few decades.
It's undeniable. And you also have producers like Sly and Robbie, the Rhythm Twins, whose bass lines and drum patterns became the backbone for countless international hits across genres. They provided rhythmic frameworks.
Incredible influence. Okay, and finally sport. We touched on it, but the sprint nation.
It's the physical manifestation of it all, isn't it? Usain Bolt, Shelly Ann Fraser-Price, Elaine Thompson-Herah. It's not just speed, it's the conversion of that high agency, that defiant will to win into focused, disciplined, world-dominating mastery, asserting sovereignty over the 100 meters.
And others too, like Patrick Ewing in basketball, Raheem Sterling in football. That athletic prowess is consistent.
It is. It's channeling that energy, that desire to dominate space into physical excellence.
So looking at this whole list, Garvey, Hall, Marley, Perry, Herc, Bolt, what are the big takeaways?
The sources boil it down to three key things. One, Jamaica exports frameworks, not just flavors or individual talents. They export templates for thought, music, culture. The education ethos is real, and it travels. That drive for mastery allows Jamaicans to turn local experience into globally relevant theory or art.
And 3.
Diaspora leverage is huge. The global network allows Jamaican ideas and influence to operate on a scale far exceeding the island's size or economic clout. They punch above their weight because the network is global. It all comes back to that sovereignty of being. It's an energy, a frequency that resonates globally because it's fundamentally about self-definition and freedom. The world feels that vibration. Hashtag hat outro.
Wow. Okay, so this deep dive has definitely done its job. It's taken that familiar image of Jamaica, the beaches, the music, the easy vibes, and shown us the incredibly powerful, complex engine underneath. It's not just a place. It's like you said, a crucible, where struggle gets transformed, where chaos is wrestled into rhythm, where limitations are seen not as stops, but as starting points for creativity.
And remembering that core belief is key. Jamaica, God made here. That innate sense of significance, of being intentionally created, underpins so much of the defiance and the drive. It suggests that even when external systems fail, the internal spirit, that combination of defiance and mastery, can still forge its own path.
So the final synthesis seems clear. Jamaica isn't just an island on the map. It's a frequency, as Burke puts it, a vibration of freedom consciousness.
Yeah, expressed through language, music, intellect, sport, even through that necessary friction of pushing back.
And that leaves us, and you the listener, with a really profound final thought, doesn't it?
It does. The paradox and the power of Jamaica might just be this. It's a small island that, through its unique history and psychology, continuously teaches the world how to be incredibly large in spirit.
Large in spirit. Enough respect, as they might say. It's definitely something to mull over. Think about how that tension between defiance and mastery, that insistence on inner sovereignty, might play out in your own lives, in your own pursuits. Thank you for diving deep with us today. Welcome back to The Deep Dive.